There is a number that should stop us in our tracks. 62%. That is the proportion of Indian parents who fall into what psychologists call the authoritarian category. Strict, demanding, high expectations, low warmth. That means 6 out of every 10 children growing up in Indian homes today are being raised in an environment where love has conditions attached to it, where obedience is the currency, where the child's job is not to grow, but to comply. Let that settle for a moment. Psychologist Diana Baumrind spent decades studying how parents raise children. She identified 4 distinct styles. The authoritarian parent leads with rules, with control, with the unspoken message, "You are here to meet my expectations." The permissive parent gives everything and asks for nothing. Love without boundaries, freedom without structure. The neglectful parent is simply absent, physically present, emotionally nowhere. And then there is the authoritative parent. High expectations, but with warmth, with explanation, with the radical idea that a child deserves to understand why. Only one of these 4 styles consistently produces confident, emotionally healthy, self-directed adults. And it is not the one most Indian parents are choosing. So what does strict parenting actually do to a child? Not what we assume, not what we were told. Research is consistent, and it is uncomfortable. High parental control is directly linked to decreased academic motivation, to chronic anxiety, to poor self-worth, to an inability to identify and express emotions. Think about that. The very thing strict parenting is designed to produce, drive, discipline, achievement, are precisely what it erodes. Because a child who is controlled does not learn self-motivation. They learn performance. They learn to do what is required when someone is watching, and to feel lost when no one is. And perhaps the saddest outcome of all, many children of strict parents begin living double lives. A version of themselves at home, quiet, obedient, invisible, and a completely different version outside, desperate for freedom they were never taught how to handle responsibly. Not because they are dishonest, because they were never given a safe space to simply be themselves. So why? Why has this pattern persisted across generations of Indian families? The reasons run deep. There is what Hindi speakers call log Kya Kahenge. What will people say? 4 words that have quietly governed millions of Indian households for generations. A child's choices, appearance, career, relationships, all filtered first through the question of what the neighbors, the relatives, the community will think. The child's happiness becomes secondary to the family's social standing. There is what we might call the invisible debt. The sacrifices parents make, real sacrifices, genuine and enormous, are framed, often unconsciously, as something the child must repay. Through obedience, through the right career, through surrendered dreams. Love arrives with a bill the child never agreed to pay. There is cultural hierarchy, a structure where emotional reciprocity flows only downward. Parents do not apologize to children. Apologies are weakness. And so children grow up learning that power matters more than accountability, that the person with authority is never required to be wrong. There is economic anxiety. In a country without reliable pension systems, children become, consciously or not, a form of financial security. And so career choices become battlegrounds. Not about passion, not about calling, about fear, about a parent's old age and who will carry it. And underneath all of it, there is generational trauma. Parents projecting their own unfulfilled ambitions, their own unmet needs, their own unhealed wounds onto a child who had nothing to do with creating them. The parent who was never praised pushes relentlessly. The parent who was controlled becomes controlling. The parent who was never heard raises their voice. The cycle does not announce itself. It simply repeats. But here is where the story changes. Because cycles can be broken. Not easily, not overnight, but deliberately, consciously. One ordinary moment at a time. Researchers and therapists who work with families call this becoming a cycle breaker. And it does not look like a dramatic confrontation. It does not look like cutting people off or rewriting history. It looks like a parent who pauses when the anger rises, who breathes before they react, who chooses, in that one suspended moment, to respond differently than they were taught. It is built on 4 shifts. The first is connection before correction. Before punishment, before the lecture, before the consequence, the child needs to feel safe and understood. A body in a state of fear cannot learn. It can only survive. When a parent gets low, gets quiet, asks instead of tells, the child's entire nervous system changes. The walls come down, and only then can the lesson actually reach them. The second is autonomy over control. Letting a child fail at small things is not neglect. It is preparation. Children who are allowed to experience the natural consequences of their choices develop genuine internal resilience, not the performed resilience of a child who simply learned to endure. Real confidence is not built by being protected from failure. It is built by surviving it. The third is realistic expectations. Every time a parent compares their child to someone else's, to a cousin, a neighbor's son, a classmate, the child does not hear motivation. They hear a verdict. They hear that who they are right now is not sufficient. And the benchmark always moves. There is always another comparison waiting. Stop projecting an unfinished story onto a child who is still writing their first chapter. The fourth is the most important of all. Heal yourself first. The most powerful thing a parent can give their child is not a prestigious school, not financial security, not the right career path. It is a healed parent. Because your unresolved trauma does not stay inside you. It moves. It transfers. It becomes the atmosphere your child breathes every single day. Addressing your own wounds, with honesty, with help, with patience, is not self-indulgence. It is the most protective act of parenting that exists. If you were raised strictly and you turned out fine, pause for a moment and ask yourself something honest. Fine compared to what? Imagine who you might have become if you had also been raised with trust, with warmth, with the freedom to fail safely and try again without shame. With a parent who saw you, not your grades, not your performance, not the version of you trained to keep the peace, but you, the actual you. Every family has a history. Not every family has to be imprisoned by it. The cycle breaker is not someone who hates their parents. They are someone who loves their children enough to do things differently. Someone who understands that you can honor where you came from and still choose to grow in a new direction. The question is not whether your parents were strict. The question is, what will your child remember about you? What will they carry? And what, finally, will they be free of? To every Indian parent, your love was never the question. Your awareness is. And to every child who grew up feeling unseen, you deserved better. And it is never too late to build the relationship that heals you both. Your child is not in a race with anyone else's child. Every time you compare, you don't light a fire in them. You put one out. Let them grow at their own pace, in their own direction. That is not failure. That is freedom.